Now, coming to our next talk is definitely going to bring some aha moments for all of us. It brings light to the concept of hardening the human element, securing layer 8 to be presented by Idni Picon, who is a Synapse Solutions architect. So please put your hands together for Idni.
Good morning, everyone. I know everybody's probably getting hungry now, so I'm going to try to be as quick as I can at the same time. Even my stomach is growling as well. I know everybody's hungry. First, I want to say thank you for inviting Synac over to the BSides here. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to be in front of everybody and talking to everybody. And thank you again for Nikhil, Depan. You guys have done a great job with the whole BSides. All right, so today I'm going to be talking about, So I'm Idne Piquant, okay? My first name is Idne, my last name is Piquant. It means spicy in French, if you're wondering. So I am a solutions architect for Synac, but I also used to be a red team, SRT red team in the past. Had a lot of fun, was really enjoyable, and it's great to actually see all the SRT people here, by the way, as well. So I've been in cybersecurity for a while. I won't take too long to explain all this, but one thing that is important about this is that I'm an Arsenal fan. So if anyone has an issue with Arsenal, we can talk later about that vulnerability that you have. We'll fix that vulnerability. All right, but we have a big game today, so I'm very excited. So securing layer 8. So we know about the OSI model, we know about layer 7, okay? Application layer. So no, there is no real secure layer 8 yet, but in real life, there actually is. And that's the human element. So that's what we're gonna talk about today. So it's not an official thing, because I know some people are like, wait, I was Googling, layer 8, I didn't see it. You're not gonna see it, but it's really out there in real life as far as the human element of cybersecurity. And that's what I want to talk about today because, I was thinking about like this year, I was asked a question about what is something in cybersecurity that really needs to be talked about and emphasized. And for me, it's because the technological hacking aspect, we talk about it, we get it, we get the technology. But as far as the psychological hack, I feel like there needs to be more talk about that. Okay, more talk about the state of the human from the emotional standpoint and the mental standpoint of the hacks. Because a lot of time, when we see a breach that happens, typically in the first phase, the reconnaissance, there's a lot of things that happen, but the way that it encounters the human, that is a psychological aspect. So one of the people that explained this really well, I don't know if you guys remember Sean Parker. He was the Napster creator. And one of the things he said about Facebook was, he said that we psychologically hacked people for Facebook because there's a dopamine involved when you're using Facebook. And not to say that Facebook is, bad to use or anything, but there is a dopamine involved that when you post, there's some mechanism there that really interferes with the way that you're always constantly checking who liked it, what did they say about it, what did they comment about it. When you wake up in the morning, you check Facebook. When you go to bed at night, you check Facebook. There's a real thing that happens there, a real reward. And I believe a lot of times the adversary is preying on that within the layer 8, okay? That's a really big deal. So Verizon data breach report, very popular, very well respected. Check this out. So 82% of breaches till this day are from the human, right? But the thing is, we'll dedicate about 18% of that is to technology, but a lot of times we focus on the technology part, but look at where the human element part is, 82% of that. So I think that needs to be talked about a little bit. So that's the reason why I want to talk about it. And by the way, Charlie was supposed to do this talk with me. Charlie is also a Synacker. He's very ill, just keep him in your thoughts, but any memes that you see on this slide, I have to dedicate to him because he's a master meme. He's really good at memes. So I'm going to give Charlie credit on that. All right. So hackers are a business. You see, hacking, I would say back in the day, a lot of it was about having fun and seeing what you could get into. Now it's become a business. Okay, we have what we call ransomware as service. Okay, like, at some point, I'm almost wondering if these organized groups are going to start posting jobs on LinkedIn. They're getting very serious about their business. So one of them is Lockbit 3.0. I'm sure you guys might have heard of them. This is a recent post a few months ago that they posted. Check this out, okay? They said that we're looking to improve our ransomware as model. They're looking to improve it. But one of the things that they're going to be focused on is they're looking for people that can help with finding PII on high-profile individuals. That's layer 8. That's humans. That could be an example of, for example, most organizations will have their blue team detection. They will have their defense. But if I can get the creds, if I can focus on the human element, get their information, whether they're a sysadmin, C-level, I can take their credentials. I can then go to the organization and come in as a normal user. I don't have to worry about any detection tool you have. I don't have to worry about any of those things. So that's, again, going back to layer 8. So if that's a focus for the organized crime, that also needs to be a focus for the organization. That needs to be a focus for enterprises in general. And this is going to be their ROI. This is going to be the organized crime. This is going to be the hackers' ROI, because for them, there's a good return of investment for that. They don't have to waste their time trying to sneak around with going into the organization. They can just get the creds of an individual, and boom, there we go. Great return of investment. I wanted to put this here. This is just an example. Equifax breach happened in 2017. Now, we all know how everything happened, but I thought one thing that was interesting in the breach was during that process, Equifax allowed you to go check if you were one of the people that your information was breached. So they put a website up there to go check. But an individual, now this is the thing, he didn't even do anything as far as like malicious with the information that he received. But what he did was, again, thinking about psychology, right? Like, if you know that, first of all, Equifax has a lot of information about an individual, a lot of information. So, of course, once you hear that it's breached, you're concerned. So when Equifax says that, hey, we have a website, go check to see if you're breached, they're going to jump at it, but not thinking security. So Equifax created a website, and an individual also created a website, but close enough to match Equifax's site. So, the thing is, I put these two URLs to know which one would you have gone to? Like, which URL would you have actually gone to? Because one of them is the malicious, but one of them is the malicious individual, but another one is an actual official site that they created, Equifax. Now, the one that's the right one, though, does anybody know? Oh, second one? Okay. That's good, that's good. And what gave that off? Equifax? There we go. So, but again, this is a good thing to look at, because when this guy created the site, he had 200,000 hits. Now, he didn't do anything with the data, but he was just proving, look what happens, because again, it's the psychology. So this is where we need to start thinking about how to train the human being as to understand the idea of like what actually is happening, slowing down, thinking about security-focused things, right? Because in totality, we're really good at the digital. We understand computers at some point, especially this generation, but we still want to make sure that we have a security mindset, security focus. Even with Uber, right? Like, we understand how the hack happened, but again, if you think about the psychology of it, you can imagine if you were on your phone and you kept getting these messages to say, allow, 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 they're calling this like, you can look at it as, they're calling it secure, like an exhaustion attack, like you're basically exhausting the human being to the point where he's getting so frustrated, right? And what are you going to do? But again, it's a psychology thing. You're looking at to make sure that you're trying to manipulate the mental status of a human being. We know that when things keep happening on our phone, and if it keeps happening, instead of taking time to figure out what's going on, you know what? I'm just going to allow it so it can stop. And that's the thing that we really need to start focusing on, is the psychological aspect, the state of mind of individuals today. What do we do currently? So right now, and the thing is, this is good at what we do. It's not that it's bad, it's good that we do it. But a lot of times right now, we're just doing training, doing webinars, training at the workplace. And those things are good, right? But again, knowing human beings, and maybe you guys haven't done it, but I'm sure a lot of us have done it. Really, you're just trying to pass the quiz because you don't want to get in trouble with your manager, okay? Or you might have, multiple windows open because there's so many that you have to do, and you're just waiting until the quiz part pops up, and you just answer it real quick, all right? This is what most people are doing, and this doesn't really help to understand what actually is the why of these breaches. What's actually the why of phishing? You may understand phishing, but you need to understand the why of the phishing. And, to this day, they keep falling for the same breach, the same attacks that happen, the same phishing that happens. So what we want to do is we want to start changing that aspect to get creative with it. And honestly, there's a lot of ways we can do this. It's going to be a community effort, but we need to start trying to change how we can help the human understand the why of why these breaches are happening, so we don't keep making the same errors. All right, so what should we do, okay? And what we want to try to do is to focus on teaching the why, and look at that, focus on the emotional state, rewarding good behavior. Again, that focus is on the dopamine, same thing with what Sean Parker was saying. Teach them to understand personal attack surface. Teach them to understand because we use Facebook, we use social media, but helping them to understand what actually gets exposed when you use that. What does it mean to put my birthday on Facebook? What's wrong with that? I want people to tell me happy birthday on my birthday. We need to let them know that hackers will use that information, even though it's one set. But if you go on Facebook and you have your hometown that you're from, you have your birthday that you're from, or where you're living now, all of these things, a hacker can use all of that information to even create an email, phish you, to know you as a target very well, make it harder for them, right? These are the things that we need to teach them, because for them it's like, hey, I want someone to tell me happy birthday on Facebook. I love how that feels, right? So we want to start teaching, we want to start rewarding good behavior in a very clever way, but also and another thing too is we do a lot of policies, right, in the corporation. Policies are good. We don't want to stop doing those. It's a good layer to have. It's like, you have a lock on your door. That's a good layer to have, but it doesn't mean that will solve everything, right? Because you can implement a policy in the workplace, but the adversary doesn't care about that policy. So the thing that we need to understand is, here's the policy, but what's the reason for it? What's the why for the policy? So that they understand why they have it in the corporation. Again, I think it takes a community effort. So even as far as the engineers, us SMEs, because a lot of us, we normally wouldn't, fall for a lot of the different schemes because we're so security conscious. We're in the industry, we understand it, but we need that to actually spread out, and it's going to take the community to do that, right? So even with passwords, understanding why we have, what's the difference between the passphrase and a password, right? Because they may hear okay, you need a longer password. Okay, that's great, I get it, but why? And if I did a long one, why can't I just have a long one with a password? Why does it have to be a passphrase? These would be good questions for them, and we need to help them understand the why of that. And the thing that's key is, we don't want to just make them experts in technology, because there's no need for that. We don't want to overwhelm them with that. Really, we just need to focus on helping them understand the why of it. If they understand the why, that alone can help them understand when a new attack comes, they can start thinking security more focused, and they'll be able to understand. They don't need to know the technology so deep. They just need to understand the why. So when things start to happen, they can start detecting it. Because as human beings, we're already wired to detect danger. So the thing is, we just have to bring that over to the cyberspace and just help with understanding what certain things mean and why they're doing it. and will be a better way to educate them. You know, it's funny, I just saw this meme on someone else's, so this is a popular meme right here. Digital security fluency. You know, like again, you know, we have to think about who our age group, when they got into, you know, like for example, our grandparents, you know, they might not necessarily be computer savvy, but unfortunately, everything we do today is information technology based, right? So now, unfortunately, they have to learn some things about the digital space, right? Like even in the, like a good example is the healthcare industry. See, back in the day, it's a lot of paperwork. You write prescriptions on paperwork, but with EMRs, that has been changing. So the thing about that is it's a good thing because there's some subscriptions that, you know, the writing on it is not clear, and it's actually killed some patients, right? So now everything is done electronically, but this is the thing. The nurses that are there, they weren't here to learn digital. They weren't here to learn how to use a tablet, but now they have to do that if they want to be able to work, because now they're given an electronic platform to input the data. So now they need to understand how to use that. That could be stressful, right? That could be stressful. But the thing is, if we can help them understand the basics of how to understand, like how to use it, but understand like this can happen if you don't realize what you're doing. These are the things that can happen. All right. They can get overwhelmed. And I'm sure you guys have grandparents that, you know, they ask you questions all the time, and they ask you questions. So we can understand, like, this is a very tough situation. But this is the thing, though. And I like this statement right here. Almost none are digital security native outside of security professionals, you know? So there's a difference, and I'm going to go to the next slide on this. There's a difference between digital security, but also being security native. So digital native or security native. You know, we want to help people to start becoming that you may be digital native, but we need to also have humans be security native to understand. So for example, right, like let's say you're using Chrome pops up on your browser. The top right, sometimes like when there's a vulnerability out there, right? Chrome will be good about, hey, update your browser, right? But the thing is, you may see that, and I tell you, I can't even tell you how many times, you know, these days we do Zoom calls, and we're on Zoom, somebody's sharing their screen. I look at the top right, update needs to be clicked. Now, it's a small thing to do, just click it, but the thing is, we need to be security native to understand, like, you know what? This is the thing that needs to be automatic. We don't want to waste time with it. It needs to be automatic. So this is the things that we're trying to do. We're trying to train people to focus on security-conscious things, right? Even with pop-ups, you know, understanding not to just click on things. Like, look at this one here. One lets the hacker in, one blocks and reports them. Which do you have on your team? See, this is very important, you know? So if we can get people to report certain things, that's good training as well. You know, not just we block it, but help them understand how to report these things. Mind control advantage. So one of the things that I think is really important to do is to retrain the human to understand how to see the technology space, because the breaches aren't going to stop. They're going to continue happening as assets continue to grow, especially now that the application layer, everything is done on there, right? So there's going to be so many, the attack surface is going to grow so much that the technology piece is good to have, but we really need to have a security mindset, right? And we need to start basically retraining human beings how to look at the cyberspace, because usually when we think about cybersecurity, we think that when we go into the corporation, all right, I got to think cyber. I'm at my desk, I got to think cyber. But now we're working, like, you know, the generation now, especially with COVID, there's the work from home, right? So now your home, your room, your office space at home is an extension of your workplace, right? Using VPN, connecting back into the work to get servers and to get files from servers. This is a really important thing that we really need to start focusing on. So one of the things that we need to retrain our mind on is the fact that cybersecurity is not just in the workplace. Cybersecurity is going to be everywhere. It's going to be everywhere that you go, right? Like, we have phones today that we are walking around everywhere with our phone, we're working from our phone. Now it's going to have to be a responsibility that we think about it everywhere that we go, okay? But in order to do that, it's going to take some time because this is like a new world in a sense, right? Like the way that we do things. So for example, even with phishing still happened through via email, but a lot of phishing now is smishing, happening through text messages, right? So when you get a text message, are you really conscious of what you're seeing? And when you get the text message, where are you getting it? Are you in the line at the grocery store? Are you somewhere like not really paying attention? Because now we're kind of like walking around with technology all the time, right? So usually if you're at the workplace, you could be a little bit more cyber focused, but now it's all over. It's your lifestyle. So we're gonna have to retrain how human beings think about cybersecurity. This is not just gonna be in the workplace. And it's a lot of work to have to do that because we're still getting used to a lot of the things that have changed our lives. I was talking to somebody the other day, and Ring is a really popular thing that we use for security, but nobody really checks their Ring on their laptop. You check it on your phone. So your phone is almost everything today. It's becoming just a way of life. Showing the personal attack surface. I don't know if, I'm sure a lot of you heard the Cambridge Analytica story that happened. Now, one of the things that's interesting is they were able to build a profile on an individual based off their likes, for example. Now, again, it's not to say that, you can't like something on Facebook, but it is to say that these are the things that happen. Like, anything that you do online is watched, it's monitored, right? So when you like something, enough likes can build naturally it builds a profile about who you are. And with that data, they were able to send certain people information to change their mind about a situation, right? To change their mind. So again, the attack surface, if you understand that, hey, whenever I post on Facebook, these are the things that people can build off of me. If I go, and we know these things too as well, like if I go on vacation, do I post it real time? Do I wait? And if I do, what's my risk? Because sometimes it's not about like you can't live your life, but understand your risk. Understand what are the risk factors when you do certain things online. Understand what are the risk factors when you are, clicking on an email. Understand like all those kind of things, security folks, and really, after a moment, it becomes second nature. It's not like we have to like do this whole like long process, but in the beginning, it is hard to train the human. It takes some time, but once it becomes a normal pattern, it's like second nature. Again, we're already wired for this. We just need to bring it over to the cyberspace. But why me? All right, this is a good one, because I tell you, a lot of people, like, for example, when you are on Facebook, right, and you log in, and then you notice that you have somebody that is asking to accept an invitation, is inviting you to accept an invitation. And sometimes in your mind you're thinking, wait a minute, I could have sworn I added that person already. Oh well, I'll just click it, maybe I didn't. And that may not be that person, right? People are creating fake profiles. A lot of human beings don't understand this. Again, you would say, why would they do this? Because the thing is, they're trying to befriend you. They want to get into your network. If there's a target that is in your circle, one way for them to get to that target is to be friends with you. Because what's going to happen is, and this is what we need to retrain them on, is typically, even on LinkedIn, right, when someone is asking, hey, I want to be a part of your network, typically, if we're security focused, we usually, and even if you're not, you usually look to see, wait, who else do you know that's in my network so that can validate, okay, yeah, I can click. That's typically how we think. So because the adversary knows that, they're thinking the same thing like, hey, as long as they see that I'm building this profile, I'm part of this individual circle, they're going to accept me. And once they do that, that's when you can start that's when they can start, targeting their target more clearly. And, this is not the demo for this, the talk for this, but there's ways to detect fake profiles. There's ways to even look at the ears the earrings, how the measurements are like, because, I mean, there's technology that's getting really good at creating faces, right? And if you're not looking carefully, just like with the Equifax, the URL, if you're not looking carefully, you're gonna miss it. But sometimes, again, it just takes a second once you become security focused. It takes a second. Like even now, like literally LinkedIn had to remove a whole bunch of fake LinkedIn profiles because there are people that are creating these, there's a big thing right now where they're creating these accounts where they're trying to connect with a lot of CISOs, being a part of Fortune 500 companies. And actually, Brian Krebs even had a talk about this. And this is becoming a common thing, right? But can you imagine, you're trying to target CISOs from Fortune 500 companies? I mean, that's a brilliant thing to do, right? But again, we have to start helping human beings detect why these things are happening. They don't understand what sock puppets are. They don't realize that, there are people generating just fake avatars, but making it look so real you think it's a real human being. And again, they need to understand the why, right? They don't need to understand too much of the technology of how they do it, but they just need to know that it's there so that when they do get someone saying that, hey, I want to be part of your network, they can start thinking like, wait a minute, let me just do some quick analysis to see like what this really is, Because how many times now have we seen on Facebook a post that comes up and says, it's not me, my account got hacked, sorry. Now, that could be minor because it's Facebook, but this can actually interfere with your life, right? It can interfere with, let's say, a user takes your user, like your profile, who you are, and they'll use your information to go apply for a loan and just steal your identity. That's when it really gets tough, right? And you don't want to have to deal with that because it's so messy. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So we're trying to avoid all of those things. All right, this is a funny one, but there's a lot of truth to this, right, in regards to passwords. Change them regularly, don't leave them on your desk, and don't loan them to anyone, right? But the thing is, in your mind, if we can have this focus, this will also help be security conscious, right? Because, again, the passwords are annoying, I get it. Like, to remember all of these passwords, it's just so frustrating, but unfortunately, there's a trade-off with security. It's a good thing to have, but there's some things that's a trade-off. Just like 9/11, right? Before 9/11, to go to the airport, to go into security, it's quick, right? But now, there's a lot of checks, but we gotta do our due diligence because there's a trade-off, And the thing is, we need to get used to that, but also there's ways to make the life easier. So, for example, a lot of times we talk about having a password manager, But with the password manager, it makes it easier because one, the password manager can generate a password for you. A really good password that the entropy level is very high, right? You don't have to think about it. This is not, the pressure is not on you. You just have to remember one password to get into your vote, right? But again, I get it, it's a lot of work. So this is why it's hard to train, but this is the kind of mindset that we need to have to do where it becomes normal. We need to train them that there's ways to make it quicker. So you can have a local password manager even on your phone. It can pull the password very quickly. It's not going to take that long. We just need to train how to do this, but it really takes actually getting out of the workplace. As individuals in the security space, we need to help people in the home to understand this. We need to practice that at home. When you start practicing these things at home, it then can go to the corporation. Because when you start practicing at home, it becomes more of a normal way of life, right? Like, if you're told to do things in the workplace, typically the mindset is once I leave the workplace and I go home, it's a different situation. And it's like, no, it's becoming the same. So a lot of things right now, for example, with the breaches, right? They'll say network segmentation. Well, network segmentation can also be practiced at home. Well, why is that? Because these days, all of us have smart TVs mostly in our homes. Smart TVs now have IP addresses. These TVs are on the same network as your main network. But the TV, when the manufacturer is creating the TV, they're not thinking security. So you don't want to have a device that's on your network, an IoT device that has no security on it. You want to have it on a separate network, a guest network. If we could just teach those minor things in the home, this will help people understand security, cybersecurity as a lifestyle. All right, what we can do today, and again, there's a lot of things we can do, and this can go so far, so deep, so wide. And again, I'm just trying to breeze through this to keep up with time, but on a higher, level of this, the idea is we want to reward the human, right? We want to make it interesting. And again, this is the same thing Facebook did. It's attacking the dopamines. It's making people feel like good about something. It's the same thing they do at the casinos, right? It's a reward, a random reward that you can get. So we've got to have a way of doing it, though, right? So one of the things that we could do in the workplace is, we can have different ways that we can send over training voluntarily. But the thing is, for every quiz that you do, you can get an amount of credits. You can get some credits for it, right? Now, these credits, in totality, like let's say if you do this quarterly, whether it's 3 times a year, 4 times, however you want to do it, but you most definitely want to do this not just once in the enterprise. But what you do is, based on the points that you get, there will be a drawing that happens, right? And in the drawing, anybody can win, because even if you have like 50 credits or one credit gets you to the entry no matter what. So then that means that everybody can win. It's not just like whoever has the most. But what you can do is there can be a reward. There can be multiple rewards, right? And there could be like a reward that's like a high reward, one that's a middle reward, and a low reward, right? But you still get a reward. Like let's say if gift cards, for example, at the end of the year, around December, you can get like even a $100 gift card, right? You can get a $1,500 gift card. That incentive is enough to make it very rewarding for the individual. But the thing is, we don't want to force something. We want it to be voluntarily, right? And one of the ways you can do this is whoever is the winner or the top winner or the middle, we can even have them train individuals about how did they level up in understanding like the different quizzes that they took, And this way, it's not just cybersecurity department training them, it's their peers, right? So then they can see how realistic it is, right? One of my peers actually won. Oh, what did you do? Oh, this is what I did. Oh, what? Conversation starts happening, right? Again, it needs to be a lifestyle. It needs to be something that's happening in our conversation. We need to have a way of rewarding, not just a quiz that you pass and then if you don't, you get in trouble. There are those things too, but we want to be able to reward and look forward to something. We all like money. We all like, gift cards. This would be a great way to kind of help the individuals understand the meaning of different phishings, the meaning of, like, we could send different quizzes, right? But this is the thing. Let's say you send an example of a phishing quiz, but the thing is, even if you get the answer right, typically when you get the answer right, they tell you, oh, why you got it right. We make it 2 parts. You give the answer, but then you also give why is it that answer? Because then you understand, because typically when you're doing the quiz, you're kind of like guessing sometimes. Most human beings may be guessing, and then after that, they may explain, oh, this is why is the answer. Well, no, have the individual, have the human put the why, right? Because in some ways, not that technology, security things are bad, but in some ways, they also handicap the human being, right? There's a lot of detection tools that we have to help protect the human for not pressing certain things, for not opening emails, but at the same time, that actually will handicap the human because they're relying on the technology so much that they don't think security anymore. They're thinking, oh, the security tool is taking care of security for me, I'm all good. So therefore, I don't have to think about security, and that's what's starting to happen. And again, it's not to say that we get rid of the security tools. It's just more so that we don't want to handicap the human, so we want to give them a chance to exercise what cybersecurity looks like. What does it mean? What's the why? Policy doesn't cover everything. We talked a little bit about this. In the workplace, when the auditors, we always used to have this joke, the auditors are coming, we got to get everything right? But we don't have that same mindset in the enterprise for the hacker, right? And the hacker is hacking every 43 seconds. But when the auditors come, we have this mindset, okay, we got to get things together. But this is the thing, when you do, and when you implement these policies, it still doesn't stop the adversary, right? There's one thing about implementing policy, but there's another thing about what's actually happening in the wild. There's a lot of different things happening in the wild that doesn't even affect policy. Like even alone, with typically, when there's a vulnerability, we patch the device. But the question is sometimes how fast can we patch the device? Sometimes we can't fix it before the actual hacker gets to it. Because there's a lot of things that's involved, inside the corporation. But the thing is, it's one thing to implement policy, but it's another thing when policy is implemented, what does it mean to the human at the workplace? So one of the quizzes, for example, can be sending a policy in the quiz, and what does this policy mean to you? What's the right answer for this, right? So then they can understand what the policy actually is. Because a lot of times they don't even know what the policies are, right? But again, we need to also have this impact in the home. It's very important to bring this in the home. We were just talking about this. If we can help explain why the policy, help them learn policy, what does it mean? Once they understand that, what helps is, it helps them have a security conscious mindset. Oh, this is the policy that we actually have in the workplace, and this is why we have it. So let's say someone didn't know that, we can explain, oh, did you know that we have this policy and this is why we have it? We don't need necessarily cybersecurity department to explain it anymore. We can have now peer-to-peer them explaining, because the thing is, in the workplace, every department is different. The marketing department from the engineering department, different attacks can happen, different policies may be in place for certain departments because they're all different on what assets that they have and what could be risk. It could be all different. So if we can have peer-to-peer explaining policies to each other, that would be a game changer. Again, now the attacks are not just happening in the workplace, they're happening in the home, especially with the work from home. So this is why it's crucial to really start teaching these things in the home, right? We need to make it a lifestyle, okay? There's just a funny little story here about password security, but these things are very true about password security. And, passwords are a good layer to have, right? And it's not to say that it's going to protect you from everything, but one of the things I like to tell my clients is, I'm not here to protect you 100% as if you're never going to get attacked. The focus is make the layers enough that when when you're one of the target's adversary, it's going to be very hard for the adversary to really breach you, and they'll go to somebody else. Not that they can't do it, but because there's so many layers in place, they're going to go to somebody else, and that's the key. You don't want them to spend too much time on you. Spend enough time that they get so frustrated that they go to somebody else, and that way we're going to start changing the ROI of the adversary. Because the thing about hackers, look, if we could do it quick, let's do it quick. That's a better return on investment for me. I don't want to spend too much time fooling around. So the thing is, if I could just do it quick, that would be great. And the thing to do it quick is having a password that's not, have a high entropy level. So if you have a longer password, it makes the attacker's time very annoying because now they have to do more work, and then that changes the way that they look at that target, and then they go to somebody else. So that's the kind of way we need to be thinking about. We're not here to be like, you can never hack me, but I'm going to make it so annoying that you're going to go to somebody else. That's the biggest key. But in order to do that, you have to understand what makes it annoying for the adversary. What are the things that annoys the adversary about things that make it difficult to breach an asset or a company or an individual? Once the humans start understanding those things, they're going to be more security conscious. They're going to be more focused on, when they see an email, they can smell something is strange about it, because they're starting to be security conscious because they understand the why. Like, for example, let's say, for it's the holidays, right? Hackers love having campaigns during the holidays. So that would be a good time for when humans know that it's the holidays, they're going to be more focused on, wait a minute, I understand that the season that I'm in, they're going to think about this thing in a quick level. It's not that they're going to take that long. It's going to be a real quick way of, I know what season I'm in. I know what position I have at the workplace. I'm a target, and this is why I'm a target. And because I understand that, I'm going to be careful how I open an email, How, like, for example, if I go to a restaurant that's next to my that's next to the company, make sure that I don't have my badge, because people can clone that, right? And they don't need to clone it by touching your badge physically. They can be distance away and just clone. Like, if we teach them these things, this will help them understand that, because when they understand how hackers think, the mindset, then they can understand, like, what actually is happening. They understand, yeah, there's phishing campaigns, they understand that, but they don't understand, like, the why. They don't understand why they targeted. Once they understand those things, it can help them understand what they need to focus on. And this is what we were talking about before. Again, like, we're trying to change the ROI for attackers. We're trying to make it difficult for them. And one of the ways to do that is to educate people. But the education is going to have to happen not just in the workplace. It's going to have to spread. But when it's talked about, for example, like, a lot of people do talk about the Uber hack, because especially Uber is, it's a popular company. But we need to start talking about what happened there. Why, how did this initially happen, and why did it happen? Was there a particular reason? Once they understand those kind of concepts, the conversation, the more of those conversations that happen, the better we can understand, like, how hackers think. Because one of the problems is, the human is not understanding why the attackers are doing what they're doing. They understand that they're doing something bad, but they don't understand the why. Once they start understanding the why, this can help them realize how they need to do things differently. And the thing is, there's so many different aspects of it, whether it's your position you have, maybe what organization you're part of, maybe the family, your last name that you have, because as an attacker, if you're the target, a lot of times they're going to go to, maybe your brother, your sister, your aunt. They're going to go that way to get to you. So it's really important to understand your position, and it's important to understand your attack surface as a human being. Not just a corporation, but even as a human being. What's your attack surface? Like, if usually I tell people, go on Google and just type your name. Type your first name, type your last name. And we don't have to teach them, like, Google dorking necessarily, but let's just have them even type that to see what comes up, just to understand the concept of what information is out there on me. Who am I connected to? How can they use my information for a campaign? Now, this will help us win, all right? Now we can start changing the game. The idea is we're trying to change the game of the adversary, and yeah, we're doing our technology part, which is great, but there is a psychological part that really needs to start coming into play a little bit more, right? This is, again, the mental state, the emotional state of a human being. We need to start changing this. Once we start changing this will help us change the attacker. This will start making it harder for the attacker, because a lot of times what we're doing now is we're hoping that we create more technology, more tools to help stop the attacker. And yes, those things are great, but we need to also emphasize a focus on the human aspect, right? Like, the human being is the weakest link. We understand that, right? We understand that concept. But why not make the human being more valuable asset? Make them like sensors in the corporation, right? Because usually with the vulnerability, we'll patch the technology piece, but with human beings, we can't patch them. We understand that, right? Like, we can't patch a human, but what we can do is we can help a human evolve in how they think about the actual cybersecurity industry, think about the adversary attacks and how they do things, right? So once that starts happening, it's going to change the game. But we need to start focusing on the psychological aspect. And this is the thing that's really going to throw off the attackers, because a lot of times the attacker's initial footprint is preying on the emotional and the psychological, the mindset of that human being. There are so many, if you look at a lot of breaches that happen, before you look at the big exploit that took place, when you start looking at the setup before that, what happened before that, typically a human being's psychological mindset was taken advantage of. The emotional state was taken advantage of. Again, just like with the Uber, it was taken advantage of because it just exhausted the user to the point where he's so frustrated that he just clicked on the button. We got to start changing that. Once we start changing that, it's going to change the how easy it is for the attacker, right? Like, we got to stop making it so easy for them, you know? We got to start making it a bit more challenging. So that's it. I try to breeze through it because I know we're hungry, but if anything that you get from this, the idea is we want to start helping the human being, the layer 8. We understand that attack can happen everywhere. There's so many ways, and this is the thing, right? Like, we're getting these new devices, these new technologies that we love. They're convenient, but in their convenience, they bring vulnerability. Even technology brings a vulnerability. The same tools that we're bringing to the corporation brings vulnerabilities as well, right? So if we can just focus on helping the human being in different aspects, understanding their attack surface, what does it mean? This will help change the attacker's footprint and not make it easy. So thank you.
I really hope the companies start incentivizing our good behavior, just like you mentioned. Okay, and those were some really good insights, like, changing our perspective from how we look at attack surface, not only at the application level, but start looking at humans as attack surface. Thank you so much, Hudney.
Yep.
Thank you.
Take care.